It is extremely important to make sure your weapons are in tip-top shape before venturing off to take on the next big beast of the wilds. The sharper your weapon is, naturally the more damage you'll do, but if your weapon is dull, you are more likely to bounce off enemies with tough skin or hides. Try not to sharpen while in combat, instead regrouping and preparing for the next fight as a monster flees to the next area. As it retreats, this is your chance to sharpen your weapon uninterrupted. You can also sharpen your blade while riding on your mount, allowing you to give chase and sharpen your weapon at the same time. Pay attention to the sharpness gauge when in combat to know where your blade durability is. Some weapons will naturally have a higher sharpness gauge than others, so be aware that not all blades are built the same. One last thing about sharpening is that some equipment later on will offer bonus perks that will allow you to make this process much more manageable, such as speed sharpening. In this video, I want to go over a couple tips I think beginners need to know before starting their journey in Monster Hunter Wilds. Now this is the beta, so some things may change when the game does launch officially later this month, but most of these things will transfer over to the base game as well. So if you like this type of content and are ready to finally get into Monster Hunter Wilds, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any guides for the areas or monsters. In Monster Hunter Wilds, there is a new combat mechanic called Focus Mode. This mode allows you to focus on monster weak points like their heads, tails, legs, wings, stuff like that. You'll know what it is because it'll be glowing red. Once you attack a monster enough, you'll cause a wound to appear. This is the red thing I was just talking about. Then you can focus on that particular spot using this focus mode to deal extra damage. You will also have the ability to use a special focus strike to deal massive amounts of damage against weak points and wounds on a monster. This is important to do because once you deal enough damage and destroy a wound, you'll get an extra monster part as well. Like Monster Hunter games before, you need to eat meals before heading out onto hunts. A basic meal will give you a boost to your health and stamina, and that alone can be game changing in some circumstances. But the better the meal, the better the buffs will be, and you'll get extra abilities, such as reduced stamina consumption or even elemental resistances. While out in the wilds, you'll want to make sure your stamina and health are always as full as they can be by using rations or eating meat, so be sure to grab any meat, herbs, and honey you find while tracking down your next target. In some areas in the game, you will have small creatures you can interact with. If timed right, you can harm a monster you are hunting. Take the Paratoad for instance. If you time an interaction correctly with this, it'll paralyze the monster just as it's approaching you, allowing you a few extra moments to collect yourself or run in for an attack. But be careful though, because these creatures, or endemic life as they're called, can and will affect you as well. You can also use the environment to trap or entangle monsters in Monster Hunter Wilds. These are things such as vines or rocks, so make sure you use your clutch claw to pull them onto monsters. And in Wilds, some monsters like the Balahara can create their own traps, so keep your eyes open at all times and don't get caught off guard. An advantage of the focus mode, as mentioned before, is that it will allow you to see a monster's weak spot when they perform certain attacks, giving you a chance to see when and where they are most vulnerable. Monsters also have specific weaknesses to certain elements, and as you hunt them, you will start to learn more about them and their weaknesses. So be sure to bring a weapon and armor with an element or side effect to best suit your hunting needs. Spend time learning how the weapon you are using works, especially defensively. The sword and shield, gun lance, and greatsword all have a defensive element built into them, allowing you to guard against attacks. Then you have the dual blades, bow, and insect glaive. These have more mobility, so you can move around attacks better, so there's no need to guard with them. Evading can be difficult, but it is extremely important in having a successful hunt. In the main game, there will be armor skills and decorations that make it easier to evade, such as the evade extender or the evade window perk. That's all I have for this video. If there are more tips and tricks you recommend for newcomers, be sure to post them down below in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. I want to give a huge shout out to all my supporters for supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate you guys as always. And be sure to like the video if you found it helpful. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Y'all be safe. Peace.